Cosatu says Cyril Ramaphosa should use the ANC's January the 8th statement to mend the party's factions. Matthew Parks, Cosatu's parliamentary coordinator, joins us now for more. Good evening and welcome to you, Matthew. What is Cosatu generally going to be listening out for in this January the 8th statement?
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I think for us as Cosatu, we have four basic expectations, and we have a lot invested in the ANC. Workers have voted for the ANC. We have given the support to the ANC over many elections. On some fronts, the ANC has done well. On some parts, it has been found seriously wanting. I think for us, what's critical as Cosatu is to see the ANC leadership giving a clear message of renewal, that they're going to deal with the issue of factionalism, of corruption, corrupt and arrogant leaders, make sure they're dealt with. We need a coherent ANC if we're going to lead society as an alliance. We expect the president to speak about the reconfiguration of the alliance, to make sure that alliance partners are treated equally, and that issues they raise are dealt with. We expect a clear indication from the president about what is going to be done to rebuild the state capacity. We cannot address our issues of unemployment, of load shedding, of cable theft, of corruption, of criminality, of poor basic services, if we don't have a clear plan to rebuild the state, to deal with its weaknesses, and to make sure that it is fit for purpose, to invest in the state machinery capacity. We also need to hear specific interventions from the state, from the president rather, about how are we going to turn the economy around. We cannot afford to limp along with a 43% unemployment rate, with unemployment even higher for young people or people in rural areas. We can't afford to be the most unequal nation in the world or to have rising levels of poverty. We need to see specific interventions the ANC is going to instruct government to implement this year, which are going to give relief to workers, from the pension relief, access to financially struggling workers, to the extension of the SOD grant for the unemployed, to measures to stimulate the economy and to rebuild critical state-owned enterprises. I think for us, those are the critical things we expect to see as Cosatu from the leadership of the ANC, which will give a clear message to government in the February State of the Nation address, and of course in the budget to be shortly thereafter.
We'll come back to unemployment in a moment, but I just want to focus on, the optics of the support of Cosatu for remaining in the alliance and indeed for the ANC. Your members' dissatisfaction was palpable at the Congress a few months ago, or recently. A top 6 member of the party, the ANC, Chair Gwede Mantashe, booed off the stage, trying to deliver the ANC's message of support. Your president describing the relationship with the ANC as a marriage with its ups and downs, and reiterated that the alliance was still the best vehicle to advance workers' struggles. But how united is Cosatu and all of its members on staying the course in this alliance?
Sure. I think the description of the alliance as a marriage is perhaps the most appropriate discussion. And like any marriage, it does have its ups and downs. At times it is very dysfunctional, but there are many benefits to workers and to Cosatu by being part of it. So we can point to progressive labor laws that were put in place by the ANC administration. More recently, we can point to the national minimum wage, which has increased the wages of 6 million workers, in particular farm and domestic, hospitality, retail, restaurant, construction and security workers. We can point to how we helped to address the COVID-19 pandemic and a lockdown of entire economy, and yet we managed to release 64 billion rand from the Unemployment Insurance Fund to help 5.7 million workers in the private sector have some money to cushion themselves when they were sent home without wages. We can point to many of the socio-economic achievements from NSFAS helping many millions of workers, some of the other quality public services that workers depend upon, and those are very important things. Equally, workers are correct to be angry. They're angry about the issues of corruption. Public servants are angry that the wage agreement was not honored in 2020. Municipal workers are angry across many municipalities for being sent home without being paid. Workers are frustrated that they are paying taxes on a daily basis, and yet they see politicians eating it left, right, and center. Of course, workers are angry about an unemployment rate of 43%. So yes, we want to see government and the ANC in particular succeed, but there's no such thing as a blank check. There's no such thing as indefinite patience. The ANC has been put on notice by our own members who want the ANC to succeed. But again, there's no blank check. They have to succeed, and they've got 15 months to turn things around. Otherwise, we cannot expect a positive result from voters in next year's elections.
You know, Matthew, you'll forgive people like myself and others who've been watching the relationship between amongst the alliance members, wax and wane over many years, and listening to pretty similar sentiments to what you're expressing tonight, again, on previous eves of January the 8th statements, and then during the course of the year, really seeing the fight getting messy and getting ugly inside the alliance. You're hearing, one partner perhaps wanting to go it alone and contest elections on their own. There's all these mixed messages in the public domain, and that's one thing. But on the other hand is the effectiveness of this alliance. Is this a marriage? And some might say it's a marriage of convenience. Some might even characterize it as an abusive marriage, an abusive relationship. Is it really in the workers' interest, especially when you have crippling unemployment? We wouldn't need perhaps as many people at the mercy of a life-saving, in many ways, social grant, if they were able to have their own agency and go out and work. We mentioned these numbers, 43%, and the unexpanded definitions, closer to 50% of unemployment. How can a trade union federation accept that?
Yeah. So look, I think for a trade union federation, we understand the nature of economics and politics in particular as being a struggle. It's not a bed of roses. You have to fight for what you want, and fights are not going to be easy, even with your friends. So everything that we've achieved through COSATU's alliance with the ANC, our engagement with government at all levels, has not been easy, has not been handed to us on a silver platter. We've had to fight for it, and that's fun. That's what we expect. Life is like that. We can point to what has happened to other trade unions who are not part of COSATU, who are outside of the COSATU umbrella, and they struggle to achieve anything. In fact, they often, without being arrogant, depend upon COSATU to open those doors, to ensure there's a minimum wage, to ensure there's relief from the Unemployment Insurance Fund, to ensure that we have a bill before Parliament which will allow workers limited access to the pension funds when they are struggling. So those we have managed to achieve. We don't want to be in the political wilderness. If COSATU was to withdraw from the alliance, do we think it won't be contested? Of course it will be. Other parties who might be right-wing, might be anti-worker, anti-trade union, would not care about the poor, would enter that political vacuum. They would go and contest the state to the detriment of workers. So COSATU's mandate from our workers is to contest power as a trade union federation, not as a political party. Yeah. And we have to contest it, be it in the alliance, be it in NEDLAC, be it in Parliament, in the public discourse, that's fine. There will be ups, there will be downs. There are victories we can point to which make a difference to workers, like the minimum wage, like the UIF, like the access to the pension funds and so forth. There are also equal real crises, real battles that we're still having to fight, like municipal workers not getting paid. So as long as we have these challenges, we have to keep pushing. We have seen progress. I think we've seen the president trying his level best and making some progress around the issues of corruption and so forth, but much, much more needs to be done. And to be honest, this is going to remain a struggle for many, many decades, given where we have come from as a society not so long ago.
COSATU is invested in the ANC getting its act together, but each election, there have been real threats to their majority. Their support has been waning. Last local elections dipping beneath the 50% mark. Last national elections lower than their previous election, around 57%. The expectations they might erode and lose more ground in the next one. Why does COSATU still believe you're betting on a winner?
Well, I think for us, we have two choices. We can support the ANC with all of its issues, and the many issues, but it has been shown time and again, through fact, not through fiction, to espouse many progressive laws, progressive policies which have benefited COSATU. And there's still challenges. We can look at the opposition parties, and we'll struggle to find any of the opposition parties which are sympathetic to workers. In fact, many of them are openly opposed trade unions, openly espouse policies which would undermine workers' rights, from dismantling collective bargaining to scrapping our labor laws, our minimum wage act, to outright privatization or to slashing the public services that workers depend upon. So I think for us, the ANC is a better choice, the alliance, which includes the Communist Party, which also has been raising, consulting about how could it contest elections. So we still need to have that kind of a debate, and that includes reconfiguring the alliance. But of course, to us, the ANC, it'll be the ANC which wins or loses in elections. The opposition parties won't win the elections. If the ANC wants to win the elections, it has to get its act together. It has to deal with factions and with corruption, with incompetent employees in government. It has to make sure it implements its progressive policies. If it doesn't do that, then of course voters will be in the right, as they've increasingly shown across the country, to be tied and to vote the ANC out of office. We hope it does not come to that, because we think workers will suffer as a consequence. But it's up to the ANC leadership to get its act together. No one else can do it for them besides themselves.
Yeah. Matthew, lastly, as Cosatu, you're neutral on Ramaphosa and Phala. You also believe that calls for him to step aside are premature. Do you believe the president is going to survive this in the longer term, and he will be the man, as the face of the party come the next election?
We believe so. We hope so. I mean, Cosatu had endorsed the president of the previous Congress of the ANC. We don't always endorse candidates for the ANC. We're not a voting component of the ANC, for example. We're an independent alliance partner. So it's normally an extraordinary circumstance when we would make such an endorsement. But we do, welcome the president's re-election. He is a former founder of Cosatu. He comes from the National Union of Mine Workers. We've had a positive relationship on many issues. We've also had very serious disagreements on critical issues too. But I think for us, we're not invested in personalities as individuals. We're invested in building the alliance, rebuilding the ANC, rebuilding the state, and addressing workers' concerns. The president has been re-elected. We welcome the election of all the ANC leadership across the board, but they have now to deal with the issues facing workers at large, facing society. We don't have the luxury of time to nurse feelings. They have to get moving, they have to get cracking. If they don't, the consequences politically for them and for the alliance for workers will be dire in 15 months' time.
Matthew, thank you very much for talking to us, just sharing the views there of Cosatu on the eve of the ANC's January the 8th statement.